Onward and upward with my demonstration of how business analysts can leverage the power of evolving AI technology in the form of ChatGPT to work faster, create superior results, and, I hope, lower stress levels. In this lecture, I'd like to demonstrate ChatGPT's ability to draft the standard path for the Get Dietary and Budget Suggestions use case that we identified in an earlier lecture. A standard path in a use case represents interaction between actors and the application. Unfortunately for me, there wasn't a lot of interaction in ChatGPT's earlier interpretation of the scope of this use case. So I decided expanding the use case would make the demonstration a lot more useful. I want to make sure you get a great idea of the potential. So my expanded scope includes things like location service, searching for vendors within a specified range, filtering and sorting suitable menu items, selecting the item, ordering, and paying for the order. In the first try, I'm asking ChatGPT to create a use case specification document for this use case using the dialog convention. I'm specifically asking only for preconditions and postconditions and the standard path to keep it lean. I identified the primary actor as the consumer, secondary actor as the vendor, and the system with which they are interacting as the FeedMe app. To make my expansion clear, it expanded the name of the use case to Get Dietary and Budget Suggestions with nearby vendors. Although I like that name's way too long for me. I would have shortened it to something like Order Food, but that's a personal choice. So I'm not going to ding ChatGPT for not being as smart as I am. So let's look at the preconditions first. First condition, the consumer is legit and logged in. Well, that's kind of necessary. They have established a profile that has both dietary preferences, budget constraints, and location range. Check. The app has permission to use the consumer's GPS. Well, that's pretty essential. Vendors have loaded their ingredient list and prices for menu items. Okay, sounds to me like we're ready to rumble. Now, let's dive into the standard path. Number one, the consumer triggers the use case. That makes sense, although in some standard use case forms, that would be listed as a trigger instead of as a step. That's a matter of taste, and I have no problem either way. Number two, the app grabs the GPS location. Number three, it finds the vendors within the defined range. And number four, the app picks menu items from each selected vendor. It's looking good up to here. Number five, the app filters out menu items that don't match the consumer's profile. That would include both dietary preferences and budget limits, I guess. With that assumption, it works for me. Number six, sorts the recommended menu items by how far away and how much to pay, just like I envisioned it. Number seven shows the list of suggested menu items to the consumer. Number eight, the consumer selects a menu item. Number nine, the app facilitates the order and prepayment for the order. Not sure why, but it seems to me that ChatGPT is rushing things here. I would have broken these steps down, but that's probably because I know how I want the app to work. Number 10, the app sends the order details to the corresponding vendor and the consumer. Nice touch that both the vendor and the consumer get the order details. I like that. Okay, that looks to me like a pretty reasonable main path. Remember, we are dealing with errors or exceptions in this path. More on that in upcoming lectures here. This starts with the consumer triggering the app and ends with a food order ready for pickup or delivery or dine-in or whatever. It's a good, solid, happy path. So onward and downward to the post conditions. Consumer has a list of menu items that match their dietary preferences and budgets. They can order and prepay for their chosen menu item, and the vendor has received the order and begins preparing the food. As the BA, I think these are better expressed as the prepaid order is in the vendor system and the consumer knows how to get it. Pickup, delivery on-site, whatever. Again, this just shows that there's work for business analysts in an AI-crazy universe. Finally, it lists menu failures although I had not requested that detail. No problem. It doesn't hurt to have it at this time. So let's see. No GPS, no go. No ingredient list, no go. No price, no go. Errors in the program, obviously a no go. And whatever goes wrong, we'll tell you so. Sounds almost like I'm quoting myself. Okay, you have seen one way to create a use case specification document. That was pretty much the first method I introduced you to in the prior lecture. Just to allow ChatGPT to flex its muscles, I want to present the same information differently. Some people, like me, prefer the dialog format. Others would rather simplify the process by seeing the path into table form. Let's see whether ChatGPT can climb that hill. I simply asked ChatGPT to present the standard path in table form, and voila. Not a problem for this crafty AI tool. The format does make the series of steps that the app takes very visible. That actually shows clearly that this use case is not terribly interactive, less than I'd like. Now note, you might be tempted to combine steps 2 through 7 into a single cell and 9 through 10 into another cell. That would shorten the table down to 5 rows. However, later when you get into alternate and exception paths, it could complicate things. So for our next magic trick, let's turn the standard path into a function list just by asking ChatGPT for it. This list represents each function that's performed in this use case, providing a clear overview of the tasks and their sequence. But you can see there's no indication of interaction here. It just adds the parentheses to show who does it. But from activate use case by the consumer to prepare food by the vendor, it is a certainly reasonable sequence of functions. I'm unhappy with number 9, facilitate order and prepayment, simply because I do not like the word and in a function name. It always screams for separation into separate functions for me. But again, that's just the BA in me. A nice touch is how ChatGPT adds the brief description of each step. If I had to turn any of these steps into a standalone use case, which is not all that unusual, I would certainly have the start of a brief for that. Besides, it's sometimes beneficial to represent use case paths in different formats just to cater to different learning styles and solidify your own understanding or meet organizational norms. In other situations, you might be forced into this by the diverse documentation standards in your organization. In any event, remember that the key to creating effective use case diagrams and descriptions is to focus on what the system is supposed to achieve rather than the how. The how comes later during the design phase. And there you have it, folks. We've taken a fairly simple use case, expanded its scope, and presented it in various useful formats. As always, remember, this is not the deliverable you want to distribute. It's just a trigger to get you started. As the business analyst, you still need to earn your bread. It's the collaboration between you and your AI assistant that delivers the goods. I hope this lecture was revealing, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lecture.